Άγιε Πατέρα, είναι ιδιαίτερη τιμή, περισσότερη χαρά, αλλά και ικανοποίηση που σας καλωσορίζω στην Κυπριακή Δημοκρατία. Η απόφαση σας να επισκεφτείτε μια μικρή σε μέγεθος χώρα, αλλά μια χώρα που διαδραμάτισε ρόλο στην πορεία του χριστιανισμού, αποδεικνύει το μεγαλείο της δικής σας προσωπικότητας να αποδίδετε τη σημασία που πρέπει στους λαούς που υποφέρουν, σε χώρες που δέχονται παραβίαση του διεθνούς δικαίου ανεξαρτήτως μεγέθους. Θέλω εκ μέρους του κυπριακού λαού, του συνόλου του κυπριακού λαού, να εκφράσω την ευγνωμοσύνη μου, να σας καλωσορίσω και να ευχηθώ ό,τι καλύτερο στο ποιμαντικό σας έργο.
Presidente,
Κύριε Πρόεδρε,
su palabra de bienvenida
τα λόγια σας ευχαριστώ για τα λόγια σας
y la calidez de su bienvenida.
και για το καλωσόρισμα τόσο θερμό.
El protocolo de la calidez es un protocolo
Το
de
πρωτόκολλο,
hermano.
το θερμό πρωτόκολλο είναι ένα αδελφικό πρωτόκολλο.
Y esto llega al corazón.
Και αυτό φτάνει και μες στην καρδιά.
So some of them will wait at the front.
انك عمري انا استنى تلفون تقول انا اخذ عندك ولا تكون بستانه يجينا غير العين قاعد انا استنى ولا تلفون يذكر التاج
Αλλάξαμε σπόρους. Όχι, όχι. Αλλάξαμε σπόρους.
Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be Jesus Christ. A very warm welcome to you on behalf of Vatican Media, Vatican Radio, and all of my colleagues here at the Vatican's Dicastery for Communication. I'm Devin Watkins, and it's my privilege to provide the commentary for this live broadcast of Pope Francis's meeting with the civil authorities and diplomatic corps of Cyprus. This is the second event on the Pope's apostolic journey to the Mediterranean island nation of Cyprus, where he arrived earlier this afternoon. On whatever platform, medium, or device you may be following this event, please know that we are happy that you could join us. We especially welcome our friends of Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network, Shalom World Television Networks USA, EWTN TV, Shalom TV India, Salt and Light TV, Atma Darshan TV, and Luminous Radio, as well as all of you joining us on local radio stations around the world. This broadcast is also available live right now on our Vatican Media audio app and on Vatican News Portal, which you can access at www.vaticannews.va, and on our Facebook page. Pope Francis is currently in Nicosia, the capital of Cyprus, and he is meeting in the ceremonial hall of the presidential palace. We currently see the facade of the presidential palace. If you're joining us on TV, right now the Pope's meeting with the President, Nikos Anastasiadis, as President of the Republic of Cyprus, and he will soon be meeting with the authorities, civil society, and diplomatic corps. His meeting with the Cypriot President is private, where there will be an exchange of gifts, and the Pope will meet the entourage of the President and his family. And then afterwards the President, when the public event starts, will open and welcome the Pope officially to Cyprus, and Pope Francis will speak to the Greek Cypriot civil society. One of the themes of the Pope's apostolic journey, which this is the second event, as I mentioned earlier, he met with the Catholic clergy and religious of Cyprus. That was his first event. This is his second. One aspect of this event is the Cyprus dispute. It's a long-running dispute between the Greek Cypriot and the Turkish Cypriot communities. This dispute originally began with the occupation of the island by the British Empire it took over from the Ottoman Empire in 1878 and was subsequently annexed in 1914. The Cyprus is made up of Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. In 2001, there were around 77% of the population were Greek Cypriots, and around 18% of the island were Turkish Cypriots. So there have been several international complications from this dispute, of this so-called Cyprus issue or dispute, which stretch beyond the boundaries of Cyprus and involve the guarantor powers under the Zurich and London agreements. These other nations involved in this dispute are Greece, Turkey, and the United Kingdom, along with the United Nations, the European Union, and unofficially the United States. So the current phase of this Cyprus issue began after the 1974 Turkish military invasion and occupation of the northern part of Cyprus, by the northern third of the island. In that area, a few years later, the local Turkish Cypriot population declared the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. However, only Turkey is the only government to recognize that republic. The Republic of Cyprus is recognized by the international community, and although the north is under the de facto administration of the self-declared Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. So in 1974 there was a coup d'etat, a government takeover in Cyprus. It was begun by the Greek military junta, which followed only 5 days later, was followed by the Turkish invasion of the island. And so as a result, the two communities and the guarantor countries committed themselves to finding a peaceful solution to the dispute. And the United Nations maintains a buffer zone, which are known as it's known as the Green Line, and this is to avoid any further intercommunal tensions and hostilities. So this so-called Green Line separates the southern areas, which is the Republic of Cyprus, from the northern areas. Recent years have seen a warming of relations between Greek and Turkish Cypriots, though talks have continually been stalled and restarted. Ahead of the Pope's departure, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State, spoke to Vatican media, and he discussed this. He mentioned this, the Cyprus dispute. Cardinal Parolin, speaking about the Pope's visits, called the Cyprus dispute a very, very delicate and worrisome situation. He noted that earlier this year, the latest round of talks between the Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot populations and governments that took place in Switzerland took place under they were UN-backed talks. However, this most recent round of negotiations did not produce satisfactory or concrete results and ended with a stalemate. Cardinal Parolin said that Pope Francis is likely to reiterate the position and the hope of the Holy See, that the Cyprus problem can be solved through a sincere and fair dialogue between the parties involved, while always taking into account the good of the whole island. Cardinal Parolin said the Pope is likely to confirm the Holy See's position, and reiterating it on site with the hope that it will have a different effect than just proclaiming it from afar. Earlier, when the Pope met with there was a brief public moment of his meeting with the President, Anastasiadis. The Pope thanked the President for his words of welcome and for the warmth of his welcome that he's already received in the short hours since he's been in Cyprus. And he said that his warm mannerisms and warm protocol was a protocol of a brother. And he said that this welcome that he has received has touched his heart. Going back to Cardinal Parolin's interview with Vatican media ahead of the Pope's departure and arrival in Cyprus, he noted that Cyprus is a Mediterranean island. It sits on the eastern part of the Mediterranean. It's located just to the south of Turkey. It's west of Syria, northwest of the Gaza Strip, Israel and Lebanon, and north of Egypt, and southeast of Greece. And Cardinal Parolin mentioned that the Mediterranean creates distances, but it also brings the peoples around the Mediterranean Sea closer. And he mentioned that the efforts of all the countries that border the Mediterranean which count Northern Africa, the Middle East, Europe, that they should all the peoples around it should be transformed, and the Mediterranean should become a space that divides, from a space that divides into a place of encounter. However, he lamented that currently the Mediterranean provides the opposite phenomenon, that at the geopolitical level there are many tensions that have the Mediterranean at their center. He mentioned specifically the phenomenon of migration, one of the topics that Pope Francis is likely to touch upon and speak about during this apostolic journey to Cyprus and then later to Greece, where he will visit the island of Lesbos, which was a hot point in the migration crisis of 2015 and 16, where many migrants showed up across the Mediterranean and tried to enter Europe through Greece. There's still quite a few migrants who seek to enter the EU, because Cyprus is an EU member nation whose currency is the euro. They seek to enter through Cyprus as well and to request asylum. Cardinal Parolin said that there are many problems that plague the Mediterranean, like climate change, the migration, as we mentioned, as well as the pandemic. And said these are the major phenomenons of problems and difficulties that the people of Europe and of the Mediterranean must present a common front and have a shared common multilateral approach to solve these problems. Cardinal Parolin also said that Pope Francis' trip to Cyprus seeks to speak to all of Europe and to invite Europe to rediscover its roots and find its unity beyond the different visions that can coexist. At the same time, the location is significant because Cyprus is often considered a gateway or bridge between East and West, as it lays so close to the Middle East in the Mediterranean, as well as being fully a part of Europe. And so the Pope's seeking to speak to all of humanity, according to Cardinal Parolin, saying that the phenomenon of migration specifically calls into question and highlights our humanity. He said how we approach this reality, the reality of people on the move who flee their homes, is also an expression of how we approach people. And lately he noted that the Pope has insisted a lot on this point, and it's also linked to his visit to Lesbos, the Moria camp of refugees that is set up, or was set up on that island. Now it's a receiving center, though most migrants and refugees, or asylum seekers, have left that Greek island of Lesbos after the camp burned down. So Cardinal Parolin said that Pope Francis' apostolic journey is a return to the fonts, the sources of our humanity. It's also a return to the Christian roots of Europe, because the saints and the apostles Paul and Barnabas, the Acts of the Apostles mentions that Paul and Barnabas were chosen by the community, the early Christian community, they were given a mandate and sent as missionaries to Cyprus and to evangelize. Paul, when he arrived, converted the Roman governor, because it was part of the Roman Empire at the time in the 1st century. He converted the Roman governor, Sergius Paulus, I believe, to Christianity. And Barnabas stayed on and was, some consider, the first bishop of Cyprus. And as we await Pope Francis and the public portion of this event with the civil authorities and diplomatic corps of Cyprus, we can I might mention that I spoke to a Greek Cypriot who he spoke to us here at Vatican Media about the anticipation that the people of Cyprus have with ahead of the Pope's arrival. He expressed that they were excited, and this man was a member of the Maronite community, which is the second largest portion of Catholic community, Maronite Catholics. He mentioned he was involved in preparing the Pope Benedict's visit to Cyprus in 2010, and he said that this man named Ninos Josephidis, he sings in a choir that will welcome the Pope tomorrow to during the Mass at the stadium, GSP Stadium. He says that he sings in this choir and that it offers kind of a cross-section of the Catholic community in Cyprus, mentioning that there are quite a few nationalities there because there have been so many migrants. There are Cypriot Catholic Maronites, there are Latin Rite Catholics, there are many Lebanese Maronites, and quite a few Catholic workers. A lot from foreign Catholic workers from the Philippines and from other nations who come there to work. Earlier, when the Pope was meeting with the religious and clergy of Cyprus, one of the sisters who spoke mentioned that a large part of the religious's job there is to work with migrants and to protect their rights and to speak for them so that their basic human rights are protected and that they are not that their work is repaid and that they're not used and discarded. This is part of the work of the Catholic community. One aspect of the Catholic community, and that has to do with the Cyprus dispute, is the displacement of many Maronite Catholics. A lot of the Maronite Catholics Maronite Catholics arrived in Cyprus as early as the 8th century, but especially after the 12th century, after the Third Crusade and the fall of Jerusalem, many Catholics were fled to the island of Cyprus. And a lot of the Maronite Catholics who have a special link to Lebanon, they lived in the northern part of the country, in 4 villages that were taken over and became part of they were north of the Green Line now, and so they've been cut off from the rest of the community. Many of the Maronites fled to the south, and this was 47 years ago, and this man I spoke to, Mr. Josephidis, said that many of the Maronite Catholics are refugees in their own country. He said they feel they're fully Greek Cypriots. They feel proud of their heritage, but that they were unable up until around 2010, for nearly 40 years, to visit their homes in their former homes and their parishes there in these 4 villages. And only after 2010 were they able to return there and visit the communities, rebuild some of the churches that were there. There's only one village that actually has a few Maronite Catholics left in the Turkish part, the northern part of the island. One of them has around 100 elderly people in Carpathia. In Kormaktikis. And then there are around only 6 or 7 Maronite Catholics left in Carpathia. The rest of them live in the southern part in Nicosia, and this Ninos Josephidis, told us that unless Maronite Catholics can go back to their villages at some point and return because they've been kind of spread out through the country, that he feels that the Maronite community might not be able to survive for many years to come. He mentioned statistics that detail the number of mixed marriages that happen between Maronites and Orthodox Christians, who are the majority of Cypriots, adding that he does not criticize the practice because, as he said, love is love, we're all Christians. He's just highlighting the fact that there's quite the Maronite community faces this slow, the threat of a slow attrition and dying out because they are no longer able to gather together. They no longer have their traditional villages. He also mentioned that on Saturday, in a couple of days, that the Lebanese Patriarch Cardinal Bechara Rai, who's there in Cyprus, in Nicosia with Pope Francis, he will be taking several of the community of Maronite Catholics to visit some of these northern villages, if they receive permission. As we continue, the video has returned. We can see Pope Francis meeting and exchanging gifts with Cypriot President Nikos Anastasiadis.
Την ελάχιστη μέσα από αυτά τα μικρά δώρα, ως ελάχιστο δείγμα της.
He's mentioning that with these small gifts, that he wishes to express his appreciation for the Pope's visit. These are lefkarakit,
Τέχνη που αναπτύχθηκε αιώνες πριν, τον 14ο αιώνα.
Stitching. It's a type of art that began in the 14th century. That began in the Lefkara village. And so that's one of them, he said, is to cover the altar. The other is to cover the chalice at Mass. And the other one is a bookmarker to mark the page of the Gospel. The other gift is a silver container that has rose water, and it's a sign of welcoming and inviting a foreigner when they visit.
La prima pubblicazione la prima stampa di un francobollo per la sua visita.
And this, the final gift that the Cypriot President Nikos Anastasiadis offers the Pope is the first printing or first production of stamps that are to celebrate his visit. The first, says the Pope, is a formella, like a bronze replica of his visit. It says in Latin, Cyprus and Greece visit. The Pope also is giving President Anastasiadis several copies of his encyclical letters and apostolic exhortations.
Είναι 8 διαφορετικές εγκύκλοι.
He calls it a small library.
Grazie, mi considero fortunato.
The Pope even offered his translator a small gift in appreciation of her services. And yesterday evening, the President Anastasiades, he spoke to Vatican media, our correspondent there in Nicosia, and to express his excitement about the Pope's visit. He called it an historic visit. He was speaking to our correspondent Christine Seuss, and he says that the Pope's coming sends a lot of messages of solidarity to the people who are suffering and people who are under distress and those who are under the occupation in the north. And this is so important, stressed President Anastasiades, and so we thank the Holy Father for his decision to pay such a visit to Cyprus. We have also spoken to several Latin Rite Catholics in Cyprus. One who spoke to Vatican News was the Latin Rite Catholic representative in the Cypriot Parliament. So the Latin community has a representative, like a minister, in the Cypriot Parliament. And this person, her name is Antonella Mantovani, and she told Vatican News that she is very happy that the Pope is coming, and that there is a lot of excitement that has been generated by this, not just Catholics on the island, but by the people in general, the general population. She said that also a lot of non-Catholics are expected to show up tomorrow for the Pope's Mass in the GSP Stadium. And she expressed the general appreciation for the Cyprus government and the Orthodox for accepting and welcoming the Pope's visit, as well as thanking the Orthodox Archbishop for inviting the Pope to come. The Latin Rite Catholics in Cyprus number around 30 to 40,000, in a population around a little over 500,000, I believe. So she said it's not a very high number, because saying that the community is sort of on the peripheries. But she says that it's nice to have the Pope's encouragement and support from the Church, so that the community realizes that they're not on their own, that they're a full part of the Church. She does mention, this representative in the Cypriot Parliament, that many people are getting older, and that the Latin communities has a long history on the island that dates back to the 8th century, and she said that the Pope's visit will help to remind the general population, which is majority Orthodox, that the Catholic community is an integral part of society, and that they do exist and have many social groups and social projects working on the island to help strengthen the links between the members of the Latin community and to make it a relevant and vibrant part of the social fabric of Cyprus. Just to go back over a little bit of history of the Catholic community in Cyprus, the Latin Rite Church where they thrived on the island following. They arrived in waves over the centuries, even though the original community was founded in the 1st century by the apostles Barnabas and Paul, as I mentioned earlier. Around the 8th century, the first Latin Rite Catholics arrived on Cyprus, and then larger waves came in following the Third Crusade, which was in 1191, and earlier, a couple of years earlier, after the fall of Jerusalem to Saladin. As we recall, Jerusalem had been taken in one of the Crusades, and then it fell again in 1187 to Saladin, and the Christians who were there, Catholics, were expelled from Jerusalem and the Holy Land. Many of them fled to Cyprus, and so during that period from 12th century to the 16th century, Latin Catholics thrived in Cyprus until it was conquered by the Ottomans in 1570 and 1570 to 73, when thousands of Catholics were killed and their churches were converted to mosques, and the Latin Church in general was dissolved on the island. However, a few thousand survived thanks to the Franciscan order, which had been present in the island since its founding in the 13th century. And as Pope Francis enters the ceremonial hall at the Presidential Palace, he's greeted by an orchestra. He walks to the front. Latin Rite Catholics, as I was saying, survived during the Ottoman occupation, and then when the British took over the island and became part of the British Empire, there was a policy of tolerance put into place.
Ladies and gentlemen,
and so
distinguished guests, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Cyprus, Mr. Nikos Anastasiadis, and His Holiness Pope Francis are now entering the hall.
We hear the announcer in the ceremonial hall welcoming the Pope and the President into the ceremonial hall. The first to speak will be President Anastasiadis.
I have the honor to invite to the podium the President of the Republic, Mr. Nikos Anastasiadis, for his speech.
And the President approaches the podium. And prepares to officially welcome the Pope.
Άγιε Πατέρα,
Holy Father, speaking in Greek.
Σεβαστοί ιεράρχες, αποτελεί υψίστη τιμή για την πολιτεία, του ίδιου προσωπικά αλλά και ολόκληρου του λαού της Κύπρου.
It is a great honor for the state, as well as the entire people of Cyprus, to welcome you today to the Republic of Cyprus. There's a pause as the translator speaks, translates for the Pope.
Τα Ιταλικά. Ποιος είναι υπεύθυνος για το... Ναι, παρακαλώ.
Αν θέλετε να συνεχίσετε, εγώ κάνω τη μετάφραση. Δεν υπάρχει.
Καλέ, δώστε και τούτο, ναι. Ποιος είναι υπεύθυνος? Ποιος?
There's a pause as we wait for the translator to arrive.
Δεν είναι η διερμηνία, το μικρόφωνο.
It appears we're waiting for the translator to arrive so that Pope Francis can have his interpreter speak and translate the President's words. As we wait, I might mention that the gift that the medallion that the Pope offered to President Anastasiadis is a two-sided coin, and one side has the coat of arms of Pope Francis, and on the other side there is it celebrates Pope Francis' apostolic journey to Cyprus and Greece, and it features the apostles Paul and Barnabas, who were fundamental to the evangelization of these lands. Saint Barnabas is depicted on the left in this commemorative medal that the Pope gave President Anastasiadis. He's depicted with the gospel in one hand and a staff in the other, the symbols of his pilgrimage to proclaim the word. In the background, we can see the Church of Paphos. And now, President Anastasiadis continues his speech. Your visit, the second official visit of a primate of the Roman Catholic Church to our country, is a historic moment, arousing feelings of particular emotion and sincere joy.
Προκαλεί αισθήματα ιδιαίτερης συγκίνησης, αλλά ταυτόχρονα και ειλικρινούς χαράς. Η Κύπρος,
Cyprus is a place marked by the passage of great missionaries, and one of the first links in the Christian chain, defined and determined the spread of Christianity.
Σημείο ειρηνικής συνέβρεσης λαών
At the same time,
και μέρος ενός ευρύτερου γεωγραφικού χώρου στον οποίο πολιτισμοί και θρησκείες βρίσκονται σε μια διαλεκτική σχέση,
has always been a place of peaceful encounters of peoples, and a part of a larger geographical area where cultures and religions are in a lasting, peaceful relationship. In an age full of challenges, but of also various problems that afflict humanity, your presence here today sends a message of inspiration, courage, and hope.
Αναντίλεκτα πολυσχηδής δραστηριότητα,
These messages
η οποία εδράζεται σε σειρά πρωτοβουλειών
similar to those spread also by the multifaceted international and wider diplomatic activity developed by the Holy See.
Διαφορετικότητας, φυλής, θρησκείας ή φύλου, την πρόθεση του διαλόγου των κρατών, των θρησκειών και των πολιτισμών, τις σχέσεις καλής και αρμονικής κοινωνίας,
incredibly diversified activity that is based on these series of initiatives that it undertakes and implements, focusing on the themes that concern us.
Ένα ρόλο που ενίσχυσε η αγιότητά σας μέσα από το
this long history that Holy See has carried out, which you, Your Holiness, have underlined, that you have been able to continue through your pastoral work, adding to this path your own personal imprint. This is confirmed, among other things, by the attention that you manifested immediately after the beginning of your pontificate for the reform and renewal of the Church, especially through the transformation of the theological and cultural orientation of Catholicism. Deeply committed to Christianity, you promote the principles and values you live by as a response to all blind fanaticism or intolerance. Principles and values that transcend individual and nationalistic interests and create a human-centered society. This includes the characterization that is rightly attributed to you as the Pope of the poor, since through your actions you show special sensitivity and care towards the protection and support of our fellow human beings, whatever they are challenged with, regardless of their religion or origin. Moreover, the insightful and effective action you take in addressing contemporary problems is indicative of your clear vision of the importance of humane and tolerant Christianity as a powerful means of promoting the values of peace, solidarity, and brotherhood among peoples. Evidence of your desire and a special attention, especially in the diligent activity in favor of the defense of human rights, the overcoming of poverty, the fight against terrorism, the fight against the expulsion of millions of people, and the issue of climate change. Holy Father, we as the Republic of Cyprus also share this same vision, realizing through the initiatives, proposals, and meaningful cooperation we develop through our territory. We seek to make Cyprus a strong pillar of stability, security, peaceful coexistence, and prosperity in our region. Your strong concern about the threat of environmental catastrophe, as expressed among others in your encyclical Laudato Si, is also ours. It is for this reason, and recognizing the consequences of climate change, that we have undertaken a regional initiative to bring together leading scientists and decision-makers in the region with a goal of developing workable and operational solutions to this problem.
Στο κέντρο υποδοχής των Ιησουητών στη Ρώμη αναφέρατε στους μετανάστες και πρόσφυγες που ζουν εκεί, τους είπατε.
Holy Father, during your recent visit to the Jesuit Reception Center in Rome, you said to the immigrants and refugees there, you know very well what it means to live without rights and freedoms. Too often we are faced with a total lack of humanity and indifference. The people of Cyprus have experienced to a high degree and know better than anyone else the pain of uprooting and being driven from their ancestral homes. As is characteristically recorded in the Acts of the Apostles, it was in Cyprus that the persecuted disciples also found refuge after the stoning of the first martyr, Stephen. In full accordance with your philosophy, we welcome, protect, promote, and integrate. As a government, we show full respect for the protection of the right to immigration and the human rights of immigrants. However, Cyprus has become the first country of destination by population share in the reception of refugees, but also of large flows of illegal immigrants through the occupied territories, and we have encountered countless difficulties in their management.
Υπέρμετρες δυσκολίες όσον αφορά την προστασία της δημογραφικής σύνθεσης του πληθυσμού. Είναι γι' αυτό το λόγο
It is for this reason that we would like to express our gratitude as a state for your initiative to transfer 50 immigrants from Cyprus to Italy. Your symbolic initiative is, first of all, a strong message about the need for a much-needed revision of the EU immigration policy, so that on the one hand there will be a fair division of the management of the problems, and on the other hand a more humane life for those who immigrate to the member states. Holy Father, it is an undoubtable fact from what I have said that we share common concerns and visions. Since the establishment of official diplomatic relations between us in 1973, the Holy See and the Republic of Cyprus have cooperated constructively on a number of issues. We strongly want and desire, as I emphasized to you during my visits to the Holy See in 2014 and 2019, now as then, the further strengthening and deepening of the excellent ties that characterize our bilateral relations and our mutually beneficial cooperation. A confirmation of our declared interest is the decision taken by the Council of Ministers last week to lease state land to the Vatican government with the aim of building an embassy in Nicosia.
Με σκοπό την ανέγερση πρεσβείας στη Λευκοσία.
Holy Father, as you rightly note regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, in the joint message for the care of creation that you published with Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew and Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the rapid spread of infection has meant that we depend on each other in our efforts to stay safe, adding that no one is safe until everyone is safe, because our actions really do affect others. If the coronavirus pandemic has shown us anything, it is that in order to respond effectively to the immediate, medium, and long-term effects of this and similar crises across state borders, it is of the utmost importance to take common measures and coordinated actions at the international level. For this, we must walk in solidarity and fraternity. Holy Father, allow me to briefly mention the problem of Cyprus, in which you are particularly interested. Undoubtedly, the ongoing illegal military occupation of 36% of the territory of the Republic of Cyprus by Turkey, the displacement of 30% of the population who have become refugees, the unresolved issue of the missing persons and the drama of their relatives, the plundering of cultural and religious monuments in the occupied territories are aspects that brutally offend humanity and rekindle the pain we have experienced and still feel. And referring to the destruction of our cultural heritage and of the monuments of the Orthodox Latin, Armenian, Maronite churches, an issue to which, like others I have mentioned, you are particularly sensitive, I would like to emphasize that it is a heritage of all humanity and of world culture. As you yourself said, on the occasion of the conversion of St. Sophia into a mosque, The sea takes my mind far away. It takes us to Constantinople and Santa Sofia, and I am suffering greatly. Holy Father, 2 years ago in Abu Dhabi, together with the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, you called for human brotherhood for the sake of peace. You spoke on behalf of the peoples who have lost their security, their peace, and their ability to live together, falling victim to the ravages of war. What I would like to assure you is that in spite of Turkey's long-standing intransigent stance that has not allowed an honest, sustainable, and just solution to be reached, we will continue our struggle for the restoration of human rights. The prevalence of the peace and reunification of all communities in Cyprus, Greek Cypriots, Turkish Cypriots, Maronites, Latins, and Armenians. This, in order to make Cyprus an example of peaceful coexistence and cooperation and successful reconstruction of a traumatic past, in full respect of all religious groups of the island. A truly sovereign and independent state in which democratic principles, human rights, the principles and values of the European ideal and the United Nations will be applied and respected. As you recently stated at the Interfaith Peace Conference, we cannot allow the lives of entire populations to become mere pawns in a game of power. To that end, our Turkish Cypriot compatriots liberated from the past should embrace prospects that offer all permanent residents and the entire territory the possibility of a reunited and fully independent homeland. Holy Father, your pacifist strength and your presence alongside all Cypriots stimulates and fortifies the efforts we make to solve our national problem. In addition to the firm stance we expect from the international community, we expect and trust in this: the support of the Holy See, and your personal strong intervention in order to reach a just, viable, and functional solution to the Cyprus problem on the basis of the resolutions and decisions of the United Nations. A strong intervention as a spiritual leader, as a man committed to the affirmation of peace in the world. Holy Father,
στο πλαίσιο της διαθρησκευτικής συνάντησης για την ειρήνη είχατε αναφέρει, δεν μπορούμε να επιτρέψουμε οι ζωές ολόκληρων λαών να γίνουν απλά πιόνια.
Today, perhaps more than ever, the international community, international relations, political and social life need ethical and moral values that effectively contribute to the improvement and promotion of transnational, interreligious, communicative, and interpersonal relations. In the midst of generalized decline, individualism, materialism, moral deconstruction, and apathy, your wide-ranging action is the most effective model. Your arrival from Rome, the land where the tombs of the Apostle Peter and Paul are located, here in Cyprus, the occupied land, and the site of the tomb of the Apostle Barnabas, the land where they walked and taught together the principles and values of Christianity, is highly symbolic. It is a symbol that still guides our journey and our steps. Relying on one another in faith, as the apostles did, we must continue to work with absolute commitment to achieve our common goals for the future of Christianity, Europe, and all humanity. With only a few days left before the great Christian feast, at a time when divisions, tensions, and conflict plague our world, let us recognize the newborn Christ in the face of every persecuted and suffering human being beside us. Holy Father, before concluding and knowing your particular interest in soccer, I would like to wish your favorite team, San Lorenzo, which unfortunately is not having a good football year. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts, once again, Holy Father, for the priceless honor of your noble presence among us.
Πιστεύουμε στην παρέμβασή σας ως πνευματικού ηγέτη, ως ανθρώπου αφοσιωμένου στην επικράτηση της παγκόσμιας ειρήνης. Άγιε Πατέρα, εξοχότατη, σήμερα, ίσως όσο ποτέ άλλοτε η διεθνής κοινότητα, οι διεθνείς σχέσεις, η πολιτική και κοινωνική ζωή έχουν ανάγκη από πραγματικές ηθικές αξίες και πρότυπα, οι οποίες θα συμβάλλουν αποτελεσματικά στην βελτίωση και προαγωγή των διακρατικών, διαθρησκευτικών, διακοινωτικών και διανθρωπίνων σχέσεων. Εν μέσω γενικευμένης παρακμής, ατομικισμού, υλισμού, καθώς και της ηθικής αποδόμησης και απαξίας, η δική σας ευρύτερη δράση ανάγεται ως το πλέον ισχυρό πρότυπο. Η έλευση σας από τη Ρώμη, τη γη που βρίσκεται ο τάφος του Αποστόλου Πέτρου και ο τάφος του Αποστόλου Παύλου στην Κύπρο, τη γη που βρίσκεται υποκατοχή ο τάφος του Αποστόλου Βαρνάβα, τη γη που περπάτησαν και δίδαξαν μαζί τις αρχές και αξίες του χριστιανισμού, είναι πραγματικά για το παρουσία σας ισχυρού συμβολισμού. Συμβολισμός που καθοδηγεί τη δική μας πορεία
to the symbols of Apostle Peter and Paul, as they walked together and taught together the principles and values of Christianity here in this land is highly symbolic that you have come to visit us here. So we work together and commit ourselves to achieve the goals, our common goals for the future of Christianity, of Europe, and of all humanity.
Αναγνωρίσουμε τον νεογέννητο Χριστό στο πρόσωπο κάθε κυνηγημένου και πονεμένου, στον κάθε άνθρωπο που είναι δίπλα μας. Σεβαστέ Πατέρα, νιώθω την ανάγκη να εκφράσω για ακόμη μια φορά την ευγνωμοσύνη και τις θερμές ευχαριστίες του ιδίου του Κυπριακού λαού της Κυπριακής Πολιτείας δια την διακεκριμένη τιμή της υψηλής επισκέψεως σας. Σας καλωσορίζω και θερμά σας ευχαριστώ για την εδώ παρουσία σας.
President Anastasiadis once again thanks Pope Francis for his visit and his presence in Cyprus. Shakes his hand as he finishes his speech.
To the podium, His Holiness Pope Francis for his speech.
Pope Francis approaches the podium, prepares to address the authorities, civil society, and diplomatic corps of Cyprus.
Signor Presidente della Repubblica, membri del governo e del corpo diplomatico, distinte autorità religiose e civili.
Well, Mr. President of the Republic, members of government and of the diplomatic corps, distinguished religious and civil authorities, illustrious representatives of society and the world of culture, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you most cordially, and I am most pleased to be present among you. I thank you, Mr. President, for the welcome you have offered me in the name of the entire population. I have come as a pilgrim to a country that is geographically small, but historically great, to an island that down the centuries has not isolated peoples, but brought them together, to a land whose borders are the sea, to a place that is the eastern gate of Europe and the western gate of the Middle East. You are an open door, a harbor that unites. Cyprus, as a crossroads of civilizations, has an innate vocation to encounter, favored by the welcoming character of the Cypriot people. We have just paid homage to the first president of this republic, Archbishop Makarios, and by that gesture I wished to render homage to all its citizens. His name, Makarios, reminds us of the opening of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes. Who is Makarios? Truly blessed, according to the Christian faith, to which this land is inseparably bound. Everyone can be blessed. And blessed above all are the poor in spirit, those who have experienced suffering in their lives, those who live in meekness and mercy, and all those who, without pretense, practice justice and are peacemakers. The Beatitudes, dear friends, are the perennial charter of Christianity. When they are lived out, the gospel becomes youthful and fills society with fresh hope. The Beatitudes are the compass that in every latitude indicate the routes that Christians must take in the voyage of life. Precisely from this place where Europe and the East meet, there began the first great enculturation of the gospel on this continent. I am deeply moved to be able to retrace the steps of the great missionaries of the early church, particularly Saints Paul, Barnabas, and Mark. So here I am, a pilgrim in your midst, to walk with you, dear Cypriots, all of you, in the desire that the good news of the gospel may bring from here to Europe a message of joy under the banner of the Beatitudes. For what the earliest Christians gave to the world with the gentle power of the Spirit was an unprecedented message of beauty. It was an amazing newness of the Beatitudes, addressed to everyone, that won hearts and bestowed freedom upon many. This country has inherited a particular responsibility in that regard, namely to be a messenger of beauty among the continents. Cyprus radiates a natural beauty that must be protected and preserved by suitable environmental policies, adopted in concert with its neighbors. A beauty that is evident as well in its architecture, its art, especially its sacred art, and its religious crafts, and its many archaeological treasures. To draw an image from the sea all around us, I would even say that this island, which is small in size, represents a pearl of great price in the heart of the Mediterranean. A pearl, in fact, becomes what it is because it takes shape over time. It takes years for its various layers to become compact and give it luster. So too the beauty of this land comes from the cultures which over the centuries have met and blended here. Today, too, the light of Cyprus is richly variegated. Many peoples and nations have contributed different shades and tints to this people. I think, too, of the presence of many immigrants, percentage-wise more than any other country of the European Union. To preserve the multicolored and multifaceted beauty of the whole is no easy thing. As in the formation of a pearl, it takes time and patience. It demands a broad vision, capable of embracing a variety of cultures, and looking to the future with foresight. I think in this regard of the importance of protecting and supporting all the members of society, especially those who are statistically a minority. I think, too, of the various Catholic agencies that would benefit from a sustainable institutional recognition, so that the contribution they make to society through their activities, particularly their educational and charitable works, can be clearly defined from the legal standpoint. A pearl develops its beauty in situations of difficulty. It is born in obscurity. When the oyster suffers after experiencing an unexpected threat to its safety, such as a grain of sand that irritates it. To protect itself, it reacts by assimilating the thing that wounded it. It encloses the foreign body that endangers it and makes it into something beautiful. A pearl. The pearl of Cyprus has been darkened by the pandemic, which has prevented many visitors from visiting it and seeing its beauty. Here, as in other places, this has aggravated the effects of the financial and economic crisis. In this period of recovery, however, it will not be anxious efforts to recover what was lost that will ensure and consolidate growth, but the commitment to promote the recovery of society, especially through a decisive fight against corruption and everything that violates the dignity of the person. Here I think, for example, of the scourge of human trafficking. Yet the greatest wound suffered by this land has been the terrible laceration it has endured in recent decades. I think of the deep suffering of all those people who are unable to return to their homes and their places of worship. I pray for your peace, for the peace of the entire island, and I make it my fervent hope. The way of peace which reconciles conflicts and regenerates the beauty of fraternity has a single word as its signpost. That word is dialogue. You, Mr. President, have repeated that word, dialogue. We ought to help one another to believe in the patient and unassuming power of dialogue on the basis of the Beatitudes. We know that it is no easy road. It is long and winding, but there is no other way to achieve reconciliation. Let us nurture hope by the power of gestures rather than by gestures of power. By the power of gestures rather than by the gestures of power. There is a power of gestures which prepares the way of peace, not gestures of power, threats of reprisal and show of force, but gestures of détente and concrete steps towards dialogue. I think, for example, of openness to sincere discussion that would give priority to people's needs, ever more effective involvement on the part of the international community, the need to protect the religious and cultural heritage, and the restitution of all that people hold most precious in that regard, such as places or at least sacred furnishings. With this in mind, I would like to express my appreciation and encouragement for the religious track of the Cyprus Peace Project, promoted by the Embassy of Sweden, for the cultivation of dialogue among religious leaders.
Proprio I tempi che non paiono propizi e nei quali il dialogo langue.
Times that can seem least favorable when dialogue languishes can be the very times that prepare for peace. The Pearl also reminds us of this, for it takes shape in the patient, hidden process of weaving new substances together with the agent that caused the wound. In these circumstances, may hatred not be allowed to prevail. Efforts be made to bind up wounds and to keep in mind the situation of those who have disappeared. And when tempted to yield to discouragement, to think of coming generations who long to inherit a world of peace, cooperation, and cohesiveness, not one marred by perennial rivalries and poisoned by unresolved disputes. For this, dialogue is necessary to avoid the growth of suspicion and resentment. Let us think in this regard of the Mediterranean, now sadly a place of conflicts and humanitarian tragedies. It is in its profound beauty. It is Mare Nostrum, the sea of all those peoples who border it, in order to be connected, not divided. Cyprus, as a geographic, historical, cultural, and religious crossroads, is in a position to be a peacemaker. May it be a workshop of peace in the Mediterranean. Peace is not often achieved by great personalities, but by the daily determination of ordinary men and women. The European continent needs reconciliation and unity. It needs courage and enthusiasm if it is to move forward. For it will not be the walls of fear and the vetoes dictated by nationalist interests that ensure its progress, nor will economic recovery alone serve to guarantee its security and stability. May we look to the history of Cyprus to see how encounter and welcome have brought forth good fruits that endure, not only in the history of Christianity, for which Cyprus was the springboard, the trampoline on this continent, but also for the building of a society which found its richness in integration. The spirit of enlargement, this ability to look beyond one's own borders, brings rejuvenation and makes possible the rediscovery of a brilliance that was lost. The Acts of the Apostles speak of Cyprus, tell us that Paul and Barnabas traversed the whole island in order to reach Paphos. I rejoice in these days that I can traverse the history and spirit of this land, in the desire that its yearning for unity and its message of beauty will continue to guide its journey towards the future. May God bless Cyprus.
End of the ceremony.
And with that, the Pope's encounter with civil authorities and diplomatic corps has reached its conclusion. As the Pope makes his final greetings to the President, to participants, we conclude our live broadcast. And please remember that this event is available on our Vatican YouTube channel and our Vatican News portal, where you will find summaries of the Holy Father's discourses and homilies, as well as reports on his main activities. You can find us at www.vaticannews.va. Be sure to find us also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for up-to-date information on the Pope's 35th Apostolic Journey, which takes him to Cyprus and Greece, as well as other news from the Vatican and the Catholic Church around the world. Thanks again to all of you who have joined us on local radio stations around the world, or on Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network, Shalom World Television Networks USA, EWTN TV, Shalom TV India, Salt and Light TV, Atmadarshan TV, and Luminous Radio. Until next time, and on behalf of Vatican Media, I'm Devin Watkins, wishing you every blessing. Laudetur Jesus Christus, praised be Jesus Christ.
Oh, γεια σας. Μου κοτσί ρε φίλε. Εντάξει.